I was the first name mentioned, Dustin Lampe, come from Cincinnati, Ohio. If I just stop speaking at about a certain time through this, it's because my time is up. And I was promised that if I stopped, I got a free drink. So they know how to motivate the young people here. And they know we don't have enough money to really buy drinks. We're in that stage. So yeah, I'm from the Cincinnati West congregation, and Greg asked me a series of questions, and I'm just going to give you the responses to those in my story. So it was 7 years ago, I was finishing up my third year of paid ministry in non-GCI churches. I was in Oklahoma and Kansas during that time. I was 26 years old, and I had reached a point of total disappointment with church ministry. But I wasn't done with God, and I wasn't done with faith and learning about Him. I wanted to keep learning. So I resigned my youth pastor position I was in. I took a full-time position doing monotonous factory work so I could get health insurance. And I enrolled in my Master of Arts of Christian Ministry program at Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. The director of Friends was named Chris Kettler. You can see his lovely picture here. Dr. Kettler, he taught me the theology of the likes of Ray Anderson, T.F. Torrance, and Karl Barth. And he keyed in on those theologians. I had never heard of two of those three. So as I was nearing the end of my 2-year program at Friends, I emailed Chris a message that said something like this: Dr. Kettler, you have taught me the theology that I believe is biblically sound. Where can I go that will support me in that theology? Kettler responded to my request with the phone number and email of Greg Williams. Never heard of that guy either. I immediately gave Greg a call. I don't wait around. And now, typical fashion that I see, Greg talked to me for about an hour on the phone that day. After the application process, Greg asked me to fly out to Cincinnati, Ohio. He told me I might work well there with a guy named Rick Schallenberger. The plan was for Rick to help me develop into a senior pastor at the Cincinnati church. For a reference on Rick, I called our next speaker, Jason France, who had previously worked with Rick. He was about 2 hours from me. He was in Kansas City. Jason said this. He said, "Working with Rick is great." I tried to pry. I'm like, "Yeah, tell me the other side of that." But so working with Rick was great. So a few months later, Rachel and I were flying out to Cincinnati from southeast Kansas to meet Rick and Greg. We liked those guys. They laughed, they joked a lot, and surprisingly, they drank wine. We hadn't seen that before. They not only accepted Rachel and I, they seemed to like us, and best of all, no doubt about it, they agreed with us theologically. I was on board. So we all agreed. Rachel and I, with our 3 kids, Reuben, Nolan, and Kettler, would move 12 hours away from our cozy small town in southeast Kansas that was near their kids' grandparents, so that I could be assistant pastor for a church of about 70 people in a big city 12 hours away that met in a rented lodge. Perfectly good logic. The parents were like, "Yeah, I get it." No, they weren't. But in my mind, and I tried to persuade them too, we had found the best church. I spent 2 years working as an assistant pastor to Rick, and now I'm on my 3rd year of working as senior pastor. So since I became lead pastor, our church has maintained this friendly GCI family reunion culture each week that you walk into. Where I was at before, the lights were out and the doors were locked 5 minutes after the service, so it was different. We've seen the culture shift, though, in our church to a locally oriented missional posture. We are intentional, good word for the day, about meeting neighbors, inviting them into our social circles, and sharing in God's outward mission with them. So the ongoing missional efforts actually end up being led by those that we meet that come into our church. They don't know what church is supposed to be like, and we tell them it's like this. We have seen our church renew, there's no question. But I want to tell you that I cannot count how many times that we tried to do events and it did not succeed. We've had one outreach group that ran over a period of 10 weeks, advertised throughout the community, talked around. 3 people attended it, 1 each time. We trained staff. We purchased materials. I took a Saturday out of people's lives. We put together an entire after-school children's ministry program. It was amazing. But my 3 kids and 1 other kid came each week. So for months, just picture me out on my front lawn for 10 minutes after the thing has started. Where are the cars at? They weren't coming. More recently, we set up a gym for a play day for young kids. We advertise. We can advertise now like nothing. And 1 kid from church showed up out of pity for our efforts. We were ready. But by God's grace, we have seen inroads into our community. It started with a change in my own heart, I believe, that Christ had worked in it. I decided that if I wasn't leading the church on mission, I wasn't leading as a pastor. I insisted to our church that we would be a church that would be an incarnational presence in our local community. Our culture did shift significantly. Of all things, I have some creative people at our church when we held our first pumpkin patch. We had a fall festival on our front lawn in conjunction with that. And along with setting up pumpkins, we had a corn maze. We went out to a cornfield in Indiana and cut down stalks and lined up a corn maze. And my wife Rachel set up many fall-oriented games, which is within her gifting. We had over 500 attend that first pumpkin patch. Most of the pumpkin patch go way out, but ours was right in the middle of the city there. The next year, we had the pumpkin patch. The attendance doubled. This year, we expect it to be really big again. Everyone knows about it around there. There's 20,000 cars that cross our building every day. So following our first pumpkin patch and our missional posture, we went with what I knew, baseball. So we had a church t-ball league. It fit in our building, as Rick had mentioned some about. The first year we had it, we actually had 40 kids from our community join, and we set up a 4-team league and had games. This year, we had over 60 at our first practice, but we actually had 48 commit and show up each time. Actually, Michelle, you're right. You have to have skin in the game. We tried to do it for free. It didn't work. So they took it for granted, a lot of them. So during T-ball, we share our Christ-centered messages to all these parents and kids. It's amazing. You know you have 2 minutes of attention, but you try to nail it. So in our missional posture, following our T-ball league, we wanted something else that brought the gospel home. So with the help of these friends from California, we held this community church day camp, the VBS on steroids. Glorified VBS, as some say. Well, it ran from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., so try to call the volunteers, tell them it's a VBS. 50 kids attended that first year. Many of them we didn't even know, but we connected through advertising. This year, with the help of a few friends again, about 8 came, we held another day camp. We had 25 kids attend, that's half. But we knew every single kid when they arrived at the building. We plan to keep this similar format. It works better for our church of inviting kids that we know and not advertising broadly. So we're at that stage. At our church, we also have monthly meals. Makes all the difference. If a guest comes on a meal day, way more likely to stay. We have community yard sales. It's like nothing to set up a yard sale now. It's what we're used to. And we set up special services for the sake of the gospel as much as we can throughout the months and say, hey, this is happening. So I want to tell you just a little bit of numbers. Since our first pumpkin patch outreach a couple years ago, we went through and counted. We have 40 members in our church that are actively participating in missions with us. About 50 people have come into our church and remained in our church. More have been coming, right? They've become members. We have a new members class about 3 times a year that averages about 10 people, where we go through our state beliefs and such. I want to tell you that I've seen a lot of grace totally evident in this. I've seen Christ holding me and keeping me and calling me who I am every day. And I've seen the people that walk in the doors as his precious children, and they reverberate with that message, and it speaks to their souls because it's true. It rings true. Our children's ministry now is coming together better than ever now. A turnaround, it's hard to get traction. Discipleship has now become a priority. We were thankful that Kathy came. We're training small group leaders now. We're not just throwing guys out there and ladies out there and say, start a group. We're going to go through training now. And we're staying focused on holding lively, Christ-centered, focused worship services each week. That's the main event. That's our ongoing commitment. Thank you for listening.